Great film based on real events, but this is quite different. Not the inspirational true story. This is a cautionary tale. It's a true crime thriller. Great cast.
For half a century, Ron Howard wore America's favorite mask. The freckled boy from Mayberry, the wholesome teenager from Happy Days, the Oscar-winning director who made it look effortless. But in his most recent reflections, the facade finally crumbled. At 71 years old, Ron admitted what he'd buried beneath every smile, every award acceptance, every press tour, the devastating cost of a life lived under lights since he could barely walk. The confession centers on 1991, a year that should have been triumphant. Instead, it became his deepest regret. While filming Far and Away in Ireland, Ron left his family for 6 months. His daughter Jocelyn was just 1 year old. When he returned home, she had changed completely. She didn't recognize him. His older daughter Bryce barely remembered him either. His wife Cheryl had been parenting alone, holding everything together while he chased another film. Ron stood in his own doorway feeling like a stranger. He made a promise that night. Never again would he take lengthy international shoots. But promises in Hollywood are written in disappearing ink. By 2005, Cinderella Man demanded extensive reshoots. He broke his vow. More time lost, more moments missed. The pattern repeated itself because the industry doesn't pause for fathers having second thoughts. But the pain runs deeper than missed birthdays. Ron's brother Clint nearly died from cocaine and alcohol addiction in the late 80s. While Ron collected awards and directed blockbusters, Clint spiraled downward, suffocated by the shadow of his more successful brother. Ron finally confronted him in 1990 with an ultimatum: rehab or lose the relationship forever. Clint chose recovery, but Ron admitted later the guilt never left. His success had poisoned his brother's life. Then came the physical collapse. During Apollo 13 in 1995, Ron pushed himself beyond human limits. 90 consecutive days of 18-hour shifts obsessing over every NASA detail, every radio transmission, every switch position. On day 90, his body shut down. Dehydration, hypertension. The set went silent. Production froze for 36 hours while the crew feared the worst. When he returned, they wore shirts reading Mission Control. But Ron knew the truth: he'd almost killed himself for a movie. Ronald William Howard's fate was sealed before he learned to speak. Born March 1, 1954 in Duncan, Oklahoma, he entered a world already scripted by his parents. His father, Rance, had adopted the stage name Howard back in 1948. His mother, Jean, trained as an actress. When Ron arrived, Rance was balancing Air Force duties with screen ambitions. The camera came before the crib. At 18 months old, Ron made his debut in Frontier Woman, a Western filmed between late 1955 and early 1956. While other toddlers learned their first words, Ron learned where to stand under hot lights. The set wasn't a workplace. It was his nursery. He didn't play with blocks. He hit his marks. Most children's earliest memories involve birthday parties or family vacations. Ron's involved grips adjusting equipment and directors calling action. The family relocated to California when Ron was still tiny, not for sunshine or opportunity in the abstract sense, but for cold calculation. Rance drove them west to be near television's new epicenter. Proximity meant everything. By the time Ron's brother Clint was born in Burbank on April 20, 1959, the family machine was operational. Ron was already working on Playhouse 90 before entering grade school. The Howards managed everything in-house. No studio guardians, no outside managers, just Rance carefully orchestrating every detail while juggling over 140 film jobs and 177 TV appearances himself. He wasn't chasing stardom. He was staying close, protecting his son while feeding the industry's appetite for child performers. Their home in Burbank wasn't glamorous. They ate meatloaf and fish sticks. Scripts piled near the dinner table, but rules remained strict. No hired help, no stage parent chaos. Ron attended Robert Louis Stevenson Elementary, then David Starr Jordan Junior High, later John Burroughs High School. He played park league sports between memorizing lines from the outside. It looked almost normal. But childhood isn't supposed to be a performance. It isn't supposed to be scheduled in 3-hour school blocks mandated by California law. Squeezed between 8-hour shooting days, Ron didn't have real classmates at the studio school near Stage 40. He did math problems while crews rolled dollies past his desk. At lunch, he sat with his father, or the prop guy Andy Griffith played guitar. Don Knotts told jokes. They tried manufacturing normalcy, but you can't fake what's been stolen. October 3, 1960 changed American television forever, but not for the reasons most people think. That night, 6-year-old Ron Howard appeared as Opie Taylor for the first time on The Andy Griffith Show. Audiences saw a sweet, small-town story. Behind the scenes, Ron's father, Rance, was waging a quiet revolution. After an early read-through, Rance approached the producers with a bold criticism. The father-son scenes felt manufactured, hollow, fake. These were dangerous words to speak in a room full of writers who'd crafted what they believed was gold. But Rance didn't flinch. He challenged them directly. Andy Griffith listened. Instead of dismissing the complaint, Andy extended his hand. They made an agreement that would become the show's beating heart. Andy and Opie's relationship would mirror Ron and Rance's real dynamic. Not the sanitized Hollywood version of fatherhood, not the stern discipline popular in 60s sitcoms, something genuine. The trust between them, the quiet lessons, the way a real father teaches his son to navigate the world. That handshake built what critics would later call the show's soul. Rance didn't just drop Ron off at the studio and disappear. He stayed close, guest starring 5 times throughout the series. He watched rehearsals, he studied scripts, he taught Ron how to listen, how to pause, how to respond like a person instead of a trained performer. Producer Sheldon Leonard noticed immediately Ron didn't try to be cute. He didn't mug for laughs. He simply told the truth. This approach came from Rance's core philosophy: be truthful, not cute. Even at 6 years old, Ron embodied this principle. When he filmed the legendary episode Opie the Birdman in 1963, 9-year-old Ron delivered a performance that stunned the crew. The scene required Opie to raise orphaned baby birds after accidentally killing their mother. No tricks, no dramatic flourishes. Ron just stood there breathing, blinking, letting real emotion guide him. Director Bob Sweeney barely needed retakes. Andy Griffith called it adult-level timing. Ron used substitution technique. If the scene demanded sadness, he thought of something that genuinely hurt him. Then he released it when cameras stopped. That wasn't just talent. That was control most adults never achieve, let alone children. And it came directly from Rance's teachings, the lessons that would eventually transform Ron from actor to director. Ron Howard called his Mayberry years a golden cage, safe but sealed. For 8 seasons through 1968, he didn't just grow up on television, he lived inside a television childhood, shaped by love, work, and adult expectations dressed as small-town stories. The world saw Opie Taylor learning fishing and friendship. Ron saw something else entirely. California law mandated 3 hours of schooling, 8 total working hours per day. A welfare worker stayed nearby to ensure compliance. But laws can't manufacture childhood. Ron's classroom was a tiny room near Stage 40 at DCLU Studios. No real classmates, no recess games, no spontaneous playground adventures. He solved math problems while grips rolled equipment past his desk. His teacher taught alone in that room, 1 student at a time, depending on which child actor was working that day. Lunch meant sitting with his father or the prop master. Andy Griffith strummed guitar. Don Knotts told clean jokes. The crew tried creating normalcy, but how do you make normal out of abnormal circumstances? Ron missed Sandlot baseball. He missed neighborhood bike rides. He missed being anonymous. In Burbank, fans stopped him requesting autographs while he was still losing baby teeth. His pay started in the low hundreds per episode but climbed as the show became a phenomenon. Money accumulated while his childhood quietly evaporated. He felt the absence even if he couldn't articulate it. Years later, he'd admit the loneliness. On set, surrounded by adults who cared for him, he felt profoundly alone. Between takes, Ron developed unusual habits. He memorized not just his own lines, but everyone else's too. He played with dolls, acting out full scenes, directing miniature actors through their marks and dialogue. To observers, it looked like play. To those paying attention, it looked like a director in training. Shirley Jones noticed during the Music Man rants noticed constantly. Ron wasn't just performing. He was studying the mechanics of storytelling from inside the machine. The Andy Griffith Show set became Ron's entire world. He knew where every light hung. He knew every grip by name. He understood camera angles before most kids understood multiplication. When the final episode aired April 1st, 1968, Ron was 14. That last week felt heavy. People saved call sheets as souvenirs. Andy and Ron stayed late talking baseball. Their on-camera goodbye was quiet, but Ron felt something fundamental ending. He'd lived his entire childhood 48 feet from a camera lens. In 1962, 8-year-old Ron Howard faced a crisis that nearly broke him. Cast as Winthrop Peru in The Music Man, a big-budget musical, he confronted a terrifying reality. He was tone-deaf, he had 2 left feet, and the role demanded singing and dancing. Music conductor Ray Heindorf spent countless hours coaching Ron through Gary, Indiana, the song that would become iconic. But technical coaching couldn't solve terror. During the soft shoe routine, panic overwhelmed him. Surrounded by professionals, cameras rolling, expectations crushing down, Ron whispered desperately to his co-star Shirley Jones, "I can't do it, Shirley. I can't do it." Jones became his lifeline in that moment. She calmed him, talked him through the fear, held space for an 8-year-old drowning in pressure. The crew adapted. They shot him from the knees up. They added tap sounds in post-production. They manufactured success around his limitations. To audiences, his performance seemed sweet and natural. Behind the scenes, Ron fought through every take. The film became one of 1962's biggest hits. Critics praised Ron's shy, endearing portrayal. Nobody saw the battle. Nobody knew about the whispered confession or the modified choreography. That's how Hollywood works. Polish the surface until the cracks disappear. The Music Man taught Ron early that perfection is often just well-hidden struggle. But the experience planted seeds that would bloom later. While filming, Ron continued his peculiar habit of memorizing everyone's lines, not just his own. He acted out entire scenes with dolls, directing miniature performers through their marks. Shirley Jones watched this and saw the future. She later said Ron looked less like a child playing and more like a director preparing. Rance had already begun writing scripts for the Flintstones and other shows. He taught Ron how to break down scenes, how to understand character motivation, how to see story structure. These lessons didn't vanish after The Music Man wrapped. They buried themselves deep, waiting. The panic Ron felt that day would return throughout his career. Before directing his first Happy Days episode, before taking over Solo, a Star Wars story, mid-disaster before every major leap. But he learned something crucial at 8 years old in that moment with Shirley Jones. Fear doesn't mean failure. Sometimes fear means you're attempting something that matters. And sometimes whisper your terror to someone who cares. They'll help you find the courage to continue. In 1966, 13-year-old Ron Howard tried expanding beyond Mayberry. He joined The Monroes, a Western series filmed in Wyoming's Rocky Mountains, real terrain, real weather. Ron learned horseback riding by watching ranch hands. The location was expensive and authentic. For the first time, he was building something separate from Opie Taylor's shadow. The series lasted 26 episodes. NBC canceled it in 1967. For the first time in his career, Ron tasted rejection. The Andy Griffith Show was still succeeding, still pulling massive numbers, but the Monroes collapsed, and 13-year-old Ron convinced himself it was his fault. That belief burrowed deep. He was the common element. Opie worked. The Monroes failed. Therefore, something about him outside Mayberry didn't connect. The logic was cruel and wrong, but adolescent minds don't process failure rationally. Ron carried this wound for years. In 1968, opportunity knocked with strange timing. The Brady Bunch pilot was casting. Ron was offered an audition for a role that would have changed television history differently. He turned it down, not because he lacked interest, but because his parents said no. Rance and Jean had established a firm rule. Either of them had to be home every day between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. If a job threatened that balance, the job lost. They wanted Ron to grow up with some semblance of normalcy. At 14, Ron craved exactly that. School, space, friends, the experience of being a teenager instead of playing one. He passed on the Brady Bunch audition. Looking back decades later, Ron believed that decision might have saved his career, because by 1974, he became Richie Cunningham on Happy Days, a role that would carry him into genuine teenage years and provide the money and freedom to step behind the camera. But the Monroes' rejection never fully healed. It taught Ron that success isn't guaranteed, that audiences are fickle, that one failure can feel like drowning even when you're still swimming. This lesson would return during EdTV's 1999 disaster, during Solo's catastrophic production, during Hillbilly Elegy's critical savaging. The entertainment industry is built on rejection. Most performers develop thick skin or quit. Ron developed something different, a driving need to prove himself repeatedly, to never rest on past success, to keep working until the sting faded. It never did. He just learned to build despite the pain. The 13-year-old convinced he'd failed never left. He just got better at directing him toward the next project. On January 15, 1974, 19-year-old Ron Howard walked into Gary Marshall's office and changed his trajectory. He didn't read lines like the other 35 actors auditioning. He simply sat down and ordered a cherry phosphate as if he'd been visiting Arnold's Diner his entire life. The chemistry with Henry Winkler was immediate and undeniable. Gary Marshall saw Richie Cunningham instantly. ABC had doubts. The kid from Mayberry was 20 now. Could he convincingly play a teenager? But Marshall fought for him. Ron signed a 5-year deal at $7,500 per episode he'd won by not trying to win, by simply being the person who'd help your grandmother with groceries without being asked. For 255 episodes, Ron played that role. But by season 5 in 1977, something cracked. He was 23, playing a teenager frozen in time while the real world burned. Vietnam dominated the news. The draft consumed young men's lives. Watergate had shattered America's faith in institutions. And Richie Cunningham noticed none of it. Ron wrote a 3-page memo to ABC. He requested real topics. He pitched a storyline about Richie facing the draft, about the war entering their sanitized 50s bubble. ABC refused. Too political. Too risky for advertisers. They compromised with glances, Richie reading newspapers about the war in background shots, passing comments about deferments. Nothing substantial. Ron told TV Guide it felt suffocating. Being a perpetually happy teenager when the world wasn't happy anymore made him feel like he couldn't breathe. That frustration planted something dangerous. The realization that acting meant surrendering control. Directors and producers decided reality actors just performed it. Meanwhile, Fonzie exploded culturally. Leather jackets sold by the millions. Merchandise hit $50 million. ABC attempted renaming the show Fonzie's Happy Days. Ron had watched his father fight for billing rights his entire career. He understood power dynamics. Despite earning $15,000 per episode, Ron threatened to walk. He gave ABC 48 hours, keep the title or lose him, and face a $500,000 breach lawsuit. Gary Marshall sided with Ron. The show wasn't just about Fonzie, it was about family. ABC compromised, the name stayed, but Fonzie received top billing. Ron won, but he'd learned something crucial. Power in Hollywood comes from willingness to walk away. By 1977, Ron was making escape plans. Directing became his obsession. That same year, he'd direct Grand Theft Auto for Roger Corman, a cheap action film that would gross $15 million on a $602,000 budget. The redhead from Mayberry was shedding his skin. October 1977 marked Ron Howard's directorial coming out. He directed Happy Days Season 5, Episode 5, A Date with Fonzie. The budget was minimal, just $10,000. 32 scenes across 3 days. Ron arrived with a shot list so detailed, the crew compared it to Spielberg's preparation. One scene tracked Fonzie through Arnold's Diner in a single 90-second take. Typically, such shots consume hours. Ron nailed it in 2 takes, saving $3,000 in the process. The episode attracted 31 million viewers, a 12% ratings jump. ABC granted him 2 more directing opportunities, paying an extra $2,500 per episode beyond his acting salary. Henry Winkler later admitted Ron made him uncomfortable in the best way. He forced genuine emotion instead of relying on catchphrases and leather jacket cool. Ron was learning to extract truth from performers. The same philosophy Rance had drilled into him decades earlier. But Ron's true breakthrough came through a deal with exploitation king Roger Corman. In 1976, Ron acted in Eat My Dust, a cheap teen crash and burn movie, but he'd negotiated something unusual. He'd only act if Corman let him direct the next film. That film became Grand Theft Auto, released June 16, 1977. Ron co-wrote it with Rance. Budget, $602,000. Box office, $15 million. A 2,400% return that made studio executives take notice. They destroyed 70 cars on camera, including a $40,000 Rolls-Royce, 3 Cadillacs, 7 police cars. Ron didn't wait for permits. He shot on real roads near Victorville. Cameras shook. Cars genuinely flipped. The chaos was completely real. He cast his mother, his brother Clint, Happy Days castmate Marion Ross. Grand Theft Auto opened in June 1977. Suddenly, nobody was laughing at the Mayberry Kid anymore. Ron was 23 and had proven he could deliver commercial success behind the camera. In 1982, Night Shift took bigger risks. A dark comedy set in a morgue about two men running a prostitution ring starred Henry Winkler and introduced Michael Keaton in his first major role, $8 million budget, $21 million in returns. Keaton improvised wildly, recording ideas on a tape recorder, dancing with a Walkman, yelling, "Is this a great country or what?" Test audiences found it too raunchy. The MPAA grew nervous, but it worked. Winkler earned a Golden Globe nomination. Keaton became a star. Then Splash in 1984 sealed Ron's reputation. Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah in Disney's first Touchstone release. Budget between $8 and $11 million gross, $69.8 million, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Oscar nomination. Tom Hanks became Hollywood's leading man. Ron could lead box office, the director had fully emerged. In 1995, Ron Howard directed Apollo 13 with a $52 million budget and an obsession that nearly killed him. He didn't just want authenticity, he demanded it. They purchased actual NASA mission control panels, some for just $1 from government surplus. They filmed 612 zero-gravity scenes aboard the Vomit Comet, each lasting 23 seconds, 10 days of parabolic flight dives. The explosion sequence with Ed Harris required 12 takes. It cost $340,000. One test went wrong and singed Harris's eyebrows. Ron refused to compromise. Every switch position mattered. Every radio transmission had to be precise. Every blinking light needed to match historical records. Ron worked 18-hour days for 90 consecutive days. He attended NASA briefings. He watched every reel multiple times. He led nighttime rehearsals. Sleep became something other people did. Food became fuel consumed standing up. The production consumed him entirely. On day 90, Ron Howard's body finally gave out. Dehydrated and hypertensive, he collapsed on set, bringing Apollo 13 to an instant, horrifying stop. For 36 hours, the crew waited in silence, unsure if the man chasing perfection had pushed himself past the point of return. When Ron came back, the crew greeted him wearing shirts reading Mission Control, not merchandise, but a plea. They were no longer making a film. They were surviving one. Apollo 13 would earn $355 million and 9 Oscar nominations. But Ron paid in collapsed veins and skipped heartbeats. The collapse didn't teach restraint. It taught concealment. Ron learned to break down more quietly, to push himself to the edge without visibly falling over it, because beneath the prestige, director was still the terrified teen actor desperate to prove he belonged. His career victories carried private sacrifices. He left newborn Jocelyn for a 6-month shoot in Ireland. When he returned, she didn't recognize him. He confronted his brother Clint's addiction, but blamed himself for the shadow success cast. He pushed young Bryce into acting before apologizing years later. Failures cut even deeper. Solo nearly ended his career. Hillbilly Elegy earned him a Razzie. By 2025, celebrating 50 years of marriage, Ron finally admitted what haunted him most. No film was worth the moments he never got back.